Alright, this is part 2 of chapter 11, Literature from the Myreadinglab, Pearson Company book. Alright, we're going to skip the questions for sake of reading the chapter. Alright, reading and interpreting novels. Identify the strategy of the reading and interpreting novel. The novel is a full-length piece of fiction. In college, you will expect with the reading novels in literature class and supplemental assignments in any of the wide variety of disciplines within everyday life. You may choose to read them for fun and relaxation. Why read novels? Novels are with engaging and training with educational, but a novel is also an experience with an opportunity to get involved with a different world. To think of the reading of the novel being similar to watching a movie. You can be lost in the lives of the characters. You sympathize with them. You feel sadness for them. You share the emotions, life, with the problems. Their experience of reading a novel can be uplifting. It can be an escape of the day-to-day life with the worry, stress. It can be educational through reading a novel that you learn a great deal about the ways of their life, on people's life. They have a relationship with different cultural ways of seeing, understanding of the world, and visit different geographical places and historical periods. Reading and analyzing Prologue with a Killed Witch. Judith the cook was born, brought up in Manchester, England. She began to carry her journalist, Guardian newspaper, went on home, freelance writer, winning awards, investigating journalism, having severely highly acclaimed nonfiction books published, most notably To Brave Every Danger, epic story of a highwaywoman, Mary Bryant. Kill Witch is one of the series fictional mysteries based on the actual Elizabeth document. Dr. Simon the actual Elizabethan Dr. Simon Ford, set in the 16th century. In the novel, the townsfolk believe that are under a witch's curse. Simon Foreman was actually his name. Now, the whole truth that could keep them from killing the witch. Below is the prologue introduction to the novel. The reading of the now before continuing this section, which offer the technique for the reading and understanding of the novels. Prologue: Kill the Witch. Judith Cook. Young couple stood together, looking over the gently rolling parkland. The sun had not yet burned away. The mist of the still lay in the pools of the hollows, over the trees, and red and deer were grazing in a tranquil scene. You're quite certain? He asked her. She nodded. Last month I was unsure about, but now, oh, her eyes filled with it, began to cry. Her loved put in his arms around her and hugged her to him. Come on now, dry your eyes. There's no need for tears. It's not if we were already promised to each other. At worst, there will be little hereabouts, but it will soon pass. So you will wed me, of course, he soothed. After all, I have no wish to stand at the church altar, white sheet, holding a candle, 3 weeks, labeled, and seduce her. Worse still, pay the price of the yokel who does not acknowledge his child by spending some periods in the stocks. He continued with the attempt at humor. Remember the jackdaws some years back, having to set their notice around with the neck proclaiming jackdaws. He's got Alice Brent with a child that brought him up to speed. It brought about a speedy wedding, especially when her 3 brothers were intervened. You're making a joke of it, she complained. Not at all. I'm merely trying to cheer you up. I love you and will wed. And what more can I say? She sighed with relief. What should you do then? How soon will it be? Leave it all to me, he replied. There will be arrangements made of the course, if any are to marry Pinner. I must see the calling of the banns, notice of the intended marriage. He puts a finger under her chin and lifted her face up to his. And now, he told her, let me see you smile again. All will be well, I promise you. Now now I'll ride over to my father's and tell him the news. He snatched up his hat, and it's the best way where I'm going. You come without and bid me farewell. A little while after, she watched the gate as he rode away and turned, and almost colliding with the dark-haired man who had come quickly behind her. She made as if it avoided him, but caught her by the arm. So he said, outcome is satisfactory, I take it. He came to me just as now, and to say that it was off to see his father and was described as a delicate matter. He laughed. I took my pleasure persuading him to tell me what it was about. What should he heard? You should have heard me. When he confessed, it would have amused you greatly. I'm sorry for bringing that up upon her, he pleaded, but to which responded sternly, and he should have thought of that before he swayed by his unruly lust. I then demanded what he, as a gentleman, intended to make. The amendments the young maid much approved of her modest life, who had now been put in a shameful position under my roof as well as the son's household. She pulled away from him, rubbed her arm, and very well then, we are wed. He did not cavil or raise trivial objection. Indeed, he seems quite happy. There's a smile. The man smiled broad. What would it seem to settle that? It is by far better solution. He did not question, but that the child is his. It's not fair. It's not right. She bursts the good and simple young man who leaves me dearly and still believe me when the child is born. He thinks me but 2 months forward. When I come now, I was already with child when he took me first to bed. When he say that when child was born so early. 16. Many are not all the small weekly. Not all of them are small and weakly. I've every confidence in your being able to carry it off, and afterwards. He picked up the trees of her hair and coiled it around his finger, and afterwards, as it will be before, I always thought that you were a clever wench. Now you have no doubt, and for look how easily you begilded him. He caressed her breast. Since he thrust him away with all the strength he ran, have you run mad? How can you possibly be? I shall be a wife soon, and I pray a good wife too. What's this? He demanded. What's not? Why no so coy? I don't force you. Remember, you were willing enough. Ah. Aye, and more shame to me, she responds, though I thought I loved you after the fashion. Now I see how far I'm stepped in deception. Now she continued, there must be no afterwards for you and me, no matter what we once were to each other. He took her by the arms and shook her, and that is final. Quite final, she asserted. He stepped back and gave her a cynical look, and then I must come to dance at your wedding, but your lover had best look to himself, for he has served his purpose. I have no intention of letting you go so lightly. And that's by Judith Cook, of the prologue of Kill the Witch, casebook of Dr. Simon Foreman. And this was over to Kill Witch, proving it, in the book, How to Read a Novel. A novel extends over so basically what you get is that somebody called her a witch, and she's having this kid's baby, and the guy says he'll marry her or not, and then he turns around and points a finger at her. A novel extends story that can tell with several generations of the family. Entire historical period can take place in a space of the day, like a short story with the containing the following elements of plot, setting, characters, point of view, tone, and theme. Refer to pages 273 to 275 for a review of the elements of the hero, review tip for the reading of the novel. Say with the title, make sure with the guess of the about what the story may be about. You might be guessed the kill of the witch involved with the evil, sinister person, series with the unexplainable events of the witch home, the result of the death of an innocent person. 2. Preview before reading, spending a few minutes reading the inside of the cover, flap of the back cover, and starting with the table of the contents, discover who the author is, what he is or she is typically writes about. With the flip of the novel, the written read of the first paragraph, then we'll give the sense of the setting possible with the main character with the prologue. Kill the Witch identifies the setting when they introduce several characters. Pay attention to the first paragraph. Main opening paragraphs immediately engage you into the event with a critical person or people. The first paragraph of the prologue present with a tranquil setting, once you can guess, will soon change. change. Watch the plot evolve. Notice the development of events. Often the story leads up to the crisis of the critical point that involves the suspense of the resolution, leaving the change of the life of the main character, often the people he or she is involved with. The prologue, we are instantly dropped right with the midst of the story that you learn much about the plot. There is much you do not know and wonder about. You do not know when the wedding will take place. You do not know how the lover's fathers react with the news. You do not know if the lover will stay with the woman, and if he finds out the baby is not his. You do not know if the woman will be able to keep an identity of the real father from her lover. You do not circumcise the surrounding with a pregnancy, and you do not know what the plan of the dark-haired man has hold on the woman. You wonder what the secret of the nature of the story of the view when the dark-haired man shows up at his wedding. Determine the narrator's role to find out what the person telling the story with the function of the reporter reporting the fact, with the commentator with the commitment of the interpreting acts and events of him, his or her own point of view. With the prologue, the narrator, the observer, the viewing of the reporter acting dialogue occurs. 6. Study characters. Pay attention to the physical characters as well as the dialogue actions. Notice how they offer other characters, thinking of the main character as well as the narrator tells you about him or her himself. In the prologue, you are introduced to the woman and her love, the making plans to wed. You might be and her lover who are making plans to wed, and you meet the dark-haired man. The dark-haired man is portrayed with the vengeful man who's bent on with the destroying of the hope and the dream of the two lovers. The highlight with the making notes read, with the character with the make, for the meaningful statement, with the narrator make, with the insight, with the comment, with the highlight, important, with the significant actions, interesting description, unique using the language, mighty note, with the possible, with developing a theme, with the prologue, with the highlight, the key action, dialogue. Pay attention, writers often figurative expressions, page 210 with the description of the language of the conveying meaning, and in the prologue you can hear the sadness in the woman's voice, with the soothing voice, with the love, with the sister laugh, with the dark-haired man, with the bleeding of the lover. He spoke with to the dark-haired man. You could see with the red deer grazing the near collision with the woman, the dark-haired man, and the trees of her hair coiled around his fingers. But you can feel that the love's in the lover's hug, and the dark man's caressing the woman's breath, with grabbing her arms and shaking her. What's going on now is that the active verbs and the lover snatch up into the hat, and the woman thrusts him away. Can you easily visualize with the tenderness of the compassion with the lover to hate-tell with the woman that did intention to marry him, and his sinister abuse of the dark-haired man as he taunts the woman and shakes her by her arms? Analyze the themes. Determine the author's method of what is he or she conveying with the reader, with the telling the story, with the reread, with the highlighting notes for the clues to why the author wrote with the novel in a prologue to early identify with the theme. You might predict that it has to do with intra-personal relations, perhaps honesty with the deceit. Selection-ship, Great Expectations, Chapter 1. Great Expectations, one of the most popular with Charles Dickens, beloved with the English renowned with the ability to create great stories and characters. Great Expectations, story of the pip, the war for the many to believe with some of the adultery with the Conley below the first novel, and preview the reading novel. The previewed in much way of the short, much more than the same way of the short word of the first paragraph of the first page with the Great Expectations, and then making connections. Preview reading, making connections. Reading tips as you read. Pay attention to the language, dialogue. How does it engage in story invasion with the image? If it does the give of the paper, the criminal. Know for the figurative language and metaphor, similes, how it helps the story become alive. And I'm just going to check how many pages this is. Seems to be 2 or 3 pages. Wondering if we should cut this because of the stories. Alright, we'll cut this tape there at the stories, that way we can have part 3. Alright, we'll cut the tape at the part 3.